Welcome to Authors Allies, the podcast where we dive into the world of authors, books, and the art of storytelling. Join us for in depth interviews with celebrated authors, insightful book reviews, and practical tips on marketing your literary masterpiece. After 20 years publishing magazines, I, your host, Rebecca Pachorik, am so thrilled to be able to work within my dream of promoting authors and their books. Whether you're a seasoned writer or just starting your journey, we've got something for you. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's explore the fascinating world of books together. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Rebecca Pachorik, and I am so thrilled you're joining us today for what promises to be a truly inspiring conversation. Today, we have a really special guest, Tammy Gegel, the heart and soul behind KC Gegel Publications. Tammy is not only a talented author, but she's an experienced baker and a former first grade teacher. She has a degree in elementary education from The Ohio State University, and she's a proud mother of 4. Tammy's work is really personal and incredibly touching. She wrote her book in loving memory of her youngest son, Austin, who had an incredible passion for animals and nature, and he had a degree in biology and a minor in zoology. Austin's adventurous spirit and dedication to wildlife live on in Tammy's books, where he takes center stage as a zookeeper and a conservationist, sharing his love of animals with young readers. I am so excited for everyone to learn more about her first book, The Weird, Wild, and Wonderful Adventures of Austin the Zookeeper, featuring sloths. We are going to dive into Tammy's incredible journey, the inspiration behind her books, and how Austin's legacy shapes her storytelling. Without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Tammy Gegel. Tammy, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Did I miss anything in your bio that we need to go with before we get started here? I tried to cover everything.
I think you got it.
Think I got it? Okay, good. I don't want anyone to miss anything because I love what you're doing so much. This book is just absolutely fabulous. I'm so excited to share this with our listeners.
Thank you. Yes.
Tell me, you have a degree in elementary education from Ohio State, and you have experience as a first grade teacher. So how does that inform the way that you structured your books in being able to present educational content to younger children?
It helped by allowing me to really think about the logical steps that I needed to take to present the facts. Because if you don't engage children as they're reading or learning, it goes right over their heads and, it doesn't do any good. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so being an experienced teacher, obviously, really going to help you with that. So when you're creating your stories, you know what to look for, how to kind of do it,
right.
and
right.
really do it right. That's awesome. So in thinking of being a parent on top of all of that, how did that influence your approach to make those stories both educational and joyful? Like, I know you said that you need to keep their interest, but how do you keep the stories educational but at the same time fun,
For me, it was bringing in Austin's excitement and joy in talking about the animals.
Okay.
And he was kind of quirky and would be, like to tell little jokes and things like that. And especially if he was really excited, he would just be really bubbly and excited about sharing. So I try to keep that in there.
I love that. And so injecting his personality a little bit really is kind of the heart of the story, I feel like, too. I love that. So you were telling me off camera in the past about your research process, and I just thought that was the neatest story. I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about what you did in order to get all the information, because you can't just up and go, I'm going to write a cute book about a sloth, right? You need to know a little bit about it.
Yeah, I started researching, looking for facts and information that we in Ohio don't know about sloths in the wild. And I stumbled on a company or a foundation, the Sloth Conservation Foundation, where a lot of the facts did come from, I did find things elsewhere, but a
Okay.
lot of it came from them. And as I was looking and writing, occasionally, as I was sharing with somebody, they would say, "Oh, it would be really cool if you could do this." Like, there are QR codes where you can actually see and hear the babies. And I had
I love
said,
that.
describe the sounds. So, one of my friends said, "Oh, it would be so cool if you could find some way to include that." And I was talking to a different friend later, and she suggested the QR codes. Well, I tried it and it worked. So,
I love that
yeah,
part.
I think it's something that most books don't have.
Hmm.
And in this day and age, with all the technology we have, it was pretty simple to include.
I love that. I'm going to show a picture of that. So if the listeners here aren't watching, just know that I'm showing kind of a picture of how Tammy did that. So if you have the video, you can see that. And I'll put these links into the show notes for us. But I loved that, and I found that really unique. But not only unique, but I think that goes back to those first couple of questions of how to keep the kids engaged, because they all are so always on their phones, always on their TVs, their little iPads and stuff. And this was a genius way to bring that education into the story to keep them interactive. And I just loved that.
Yes,
I loved that.
I,
They turn out really cute. Is that something that you think you'll continue to do? Like, you were happy with the way that
I
worked out?
really hope to be able to do that,
Okay.
because it makes it more real to the kids.
Yes. Okay.
And besides, whoever
Absolutely.
thought about a sloth making any sound?
I didn't even know they made sound until I watched your video. I thought they were just
Yeah,
quiet.
I hadn't thought about it until I saw
Yeah.
that and I went, yeah, I don't know how to share that otherwise. And lo and behold, it happened.
That is amazing. Now, did you get to see any sloths in person while you were doing the research?
Yes, I went to the Columbus Zoo and
Okay.
got to spend a couple hours with
Nice.
the sloth keepers and feed the sloths a couple of the sloths that they have.
Love that.
Actually got to see their excrement bucket. Yeah.
Fun. Well, the kids would love that.
Oh yeah. So, and that was one thing somebody said, I don't think you should put that in there. And I said, no, kids love that kind of stuff. Kids love that kind of stuff. And so I wouldn't
Yes.
take it back out. It's just part of the animals, and it was really kind of surprising that it didn't smell very strong. And I imagine
Really?
in the rainforest you wouldn't really be able to smell it at all,
Oh, yeah. Probably
because there's
not.
going to be so many other smells, and
Right.
it's
Right.
also helping to camouflage the sloth.
Oh, I didn't think of that. That's really good. And that that is so great for the kids to be able to learn those all those little bits and
Hmm.
pieces, right? And you wouldn't know that yourself if you hadn't got to experience that in person. And at least by looking at your videos in connection with the book, they can get a little more of a feel for a sloth life,
Right.
right? And did you have a video in here? Is that where I saw the video of how it takes them forever to even go to the bathroom? Or was that maybe on one of
No,
your
that is
Facebook pages?
in a couple pages before. You see the ones with the
Okay.
babies, where they do the
Okay.
one of the types of sloths will do a poop dance at the bottom of the tree.
That is awesome.
And it was just so funny to me that they climb down the tree as slow as they are. They could be 100 feet in the air and have to go all the way to the ground to use the bathroom, and then climb all the way back up. And it's when they're the
And they're
most
slower than
vulnerable.
molasses. Oh my
They're
goodness.
the most visible on the ground. So it's taking a chance with their life to even go to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, who would think, right? That you're at risk just doing your normal things,
Right.
right? And what you said about kids loving that, I mean, having been a teacher, I'm sure you heard so many poop stories, not to mention being a mother of 4. I mean, I'm a mother of 1,
Hmm.
and it's a boy, and it's like he's 22, and I still hear poop
Hmm.
stories. That just never ends.
Yeah. It's
I
it's a
mean,
part of our
it's a
daily
thing,
life. Well, for sloth, it's
right?
once a week,
Right?
but it's part of our daily
Once a week.
life.
That's what it is. Oh my gosh. So once a week, they do their poop dance, jiggle on down the thing. That is just amazing to me. And when you went to the Columbus Zoo, I know you had told me that they were just so wonderful for you to get some of this research. Now, is that the same zoo that your son worked at? Wasn't that kind of part of the inspiration
He
of all
did
of it?
not work at the Columbus Zoo, but it was his favorite zoo to visit.
It was his favorite.
Yes.
Okay, I love
He,
that. I love that. So,
in fact, the last birthday that his girlfriend took him to the Columbus Zoo for the day.
mm,
And, because they were both biology majors. She did not major in
right?
zoology, but she liked animals as much as Austin did. And
Okay,
so they went to the Columbus Zoo. Austin had
I love
always
it.
wanted to be the next Jack Hanna. So the Columbus Zoo was a
Mm.
definite favorite. So,
Yeah, that is really neat. And so, you mentioned that you're writing in memory of him, of course.
mhm.
So, how did that passion that he had directly influence the creation of the book? And I know you're also planning on maybe doing a whole series out of this. So, what kind of sparked in your mind? Like, just all of a sudden one day, did he just kind of come to you in a dream, or, like what made you go, I'm going to write a book?
One of my classmates stopped by my house. Our kids are the same age, and she stopped by and she goes, "I think you should write children's books in his memory." And I said, "Oh, Jen, I don't even write a grocery list anymore. I do it all online." And she goes, "No, I really think you should think about it." Um, and I've never tried to write a book, never anything
Yeah.
like this. So it was really a step away from anything I've ever tried or thought about, even. And to have
Wow.
it turn out as well as it did is just mind boggling to me. If I
That is
and if I
amazing.
had something that I wanted to include, almost all of it just kind of showed up in front of me in 24 hours. The
Really.
very
So how long did it take from that conversation with her for you to decide that you actually were going to do it?
um I think I started working on a book about wolves. Austin had an encounter with a
Okay.
wolf where he was working at this little place that had animals, and they had a wolf, and they took him in his first day of work to meet the wolf, and the wolf jumped up and
Aw.
wrapped his mouth around Austin's throat. And Austin said,
Oh, my goodness.
"Don't get me wrong, I was really nervous. I was glad that I had an inkling as to what might be happening, but," he goes, "it was nerve wracking." What happens with a wolf, they are a pack animal. So this wolf was lone. He had a companion dog, but he adopted humans. And when the wolf did that by wrapping his
Mm.
mouth around his neck, it was accepting him into the pack. The other option was it was going to
Wow.
rip his throat out. Those are the
So he had a 50-50 chance there.
right. And I don't know why Austin
Oh my
thought he was
gosh.
accepting him, but the wolf did accept him, and they went for a 6 mile walk, and everything was fine. So I had started pulling
Wow.
information for the wolves, and I started seeing sloths. And I
Okay.
went after a little while. I went, okay, I've seen sloths on Facebook, in games, on
Mm.
car windows. I mean, just about everywhere. And I went, I'm gonna put the wolf and see what I can find on sloths. And I finished writing the book, and I'm like, I closed my laptop and I said, it's done. We're not adding anything else. We're going to start editing. And I get on my
Mm-hmm.
phone for a minute for a break, and I see this post from Mendaya. And I've seen him post things about animals before, and this day he was posting groups of animals and what their names are,
Okay.
or what the name of the group is. And he finished with a group of sloths. And I went, yeah, I guess I'm not. And I opened the laptop back up and I included that a group of sloths is called a snuggle. And I
A
a
snuggle?
snuggle. And I thought it was
I
too
love that.
perfect. And I did go ahead and research it, and the Sloth Conservation Foundation had it on their website that a group of sloths is called a snuggle. And I thought, that's what everybody wants to do with a sloth. So it was
Hmm.
just
They're so
perfect.
cute.
So,
I love that. I love that. So, I mean, that's interesting that you said how you kept seeing it all over, right? So it's like you just kept getting all of these signs. Most authors that I talk to, I mean, they tell me their characters talk to them. They don't tell the story,
right,
right? And so, once you start writing and you have these characters, they kind of take over. And it sounds like the sloths were like, yeah, Tammy, you're writing about
right.
us. This is not optional. I mean, they just kept coming at you, and then yeah, it's inevitable. An author thinks they're finished, and then you always think of something
Yeah.
else, right? That you have to write. So the sloths came to you, but originally in thinking of the wolves, um, you're still you've got all that research
Mm-hmm.
still. But I believe you told me that there's a different book coming next, if I read everything correctly, that's not going to be the wolf story. So what made you kind of come up then with this next story?
As I was working through the book, um, we had found in Austin's room lots of things that were fox related.
Ah,
And some of
okay.
his friends would post things that had foxes and, connect it to Austin. And I'm like, so finally I messaged a friend and I said, what is this? I haven't
Yeah.
heard about
What's the
this.
deal with the fox?
Um, so she goes, oh, it's the funniest thing. Austin had, well, I'm sorry, for Christmas one year, they decided they didn't want to spend money on each other. They wanted to create
Okay.
something that with stuff they already had. So he decided to let each of his friends know what animal they were most like and what traits they shared.
Fine. Okay.
And I'm like, that is such an Austin thing to do.
I love it.
Um,
It's cute.
so I asked her, I said, well, did he tell you what animal he thought he was most like? And he said yes, or she said yes, it was a red fox.
Ah,
So, and as I finished, it was about the time I was finishing the basic writing, I started seeing foxes. Red foxes, especially.
I love it.
So they've kind of gotten dear to my heart, and that's the topic of the next book.
I love it. It's like the red fox is like his spirit animal,
Yes.
right? And same thing kind of happens. So, now the fox will talk to you as you're writing the fox story. Have you, now that this book is out, have you actually started writing the fox story, or is it sort of still kind of mulling around,
I,
Like I know it takes a little
yeah.
thinking.
The beginning of the book it has to be the way it's going to be because it's been there for a year and a half. Um,
Okay. I love it.
and once I get past that is what's kind of mulling around yet. And I think it's going to trigger by information that I find.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be really interesting, I think, because this one is outside of the zoo.
Oh,
And
okay. That was one of the questions I thought
yeah,
of.
so
Okay.
it's more about him and Emily. Emily is actually his girlfriend
Okay.
and not just a coworker in the story. They didn't ever work
Gotcha.
together, but she wanted to be part of the stories when I asked. And
So
so
fun.
with this one, they're going for a walk down to an environmental center that has a lot of land around it, and they spot a fox. And Austin
Fun.
shouts, "A fox!" and scares it off.
Oh my
So then they
goodness.
keep going back to see if they can find it. And I'll let the rest of the story remain.
Yes, yes. We don't want to bust the story there. Well, that is really fun. So, no pressure, but do you have any concept of when that one might get released? When do you have any potential goals on that yet? Like next year
I'm
sometime
hoping
or
by next year at this time. Since now
okay.
that I have
That's
one under
great.
my belt and kind of know the process
Mhm.
and that kind of stuff, I think it'll be easier. So
Okay.
that I can, proceed through some things that I stumbled with this time. Um,
N- Now you mentioned the illustrator. I believe that, or you mentioned Austin's girlfriend.
Yes.
That is the illustrator,
No,
right?
the illustrator was the younger sister of a friend in high school,
Okay.
and Austin would go hang out with
Okay.
this girl after school, and the younger sister would hang out with them, and they would go out in the yard and do
I
things
love it.
together, and so
Okay.
she knew Austin pretty well, and she did a
Gotcha.
fabulous job with the artwork in this book. There is no doubt who is pictured on the page that it's Austin.
I love that. And that just makes it even better because, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to portray a personality in a
Yes.
drawing, right? And for her to know him, that's got to be the best way
Yes.
for that to happen. So she was a friend of
Mm-hmm.
his. And do we think that she will be able to continue illustrating for any of the other books?
She has said, at least so far, that she will continue to illustrate for me. So,
So at the moment, that's the
yes.
plan.
Of course, we never
And
know what,
unless life is lifing,
right?
right?
And she's excited about the next one. She
Good.
did put a fox in
Good,
this
good.
first one, which, there's a picture of a fox, and
Yes.
I was excited about that. And
Good.
then any books after the one about the fox, we're going to hide a fox in each book.
Yes. I love that.
Just kind of like a Where's Waldo kind of thing to try to find him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, we may do a contest. Once you find him,
Absolutely.
let me know and we'll, I don't know, send a bookmark or something that,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
There's so many fun things you can do. And, going back to your teaching experience, you already know that's what you have to do,
Yes.
right? You have to keep engaging the kids the entire time. And from a marketing perspective, I'm always thinking that. I think that's a great idea too, because it's a really good way to tie your series
Mm-hmm.
together. I mean, obviously you've got Austin tying the whole thing together. It's his weird, wild, and wonderful adventures, right? So there's that. But then there's that little extra piece, right?
Yes.
And so people will just start knowing to look for the fox. And so that's just another way to keep pulling in that
Mm-hmm.
educational aspect. Now, in addition to the Weird, Wild, and Wonderful Adventures series, do you envision expanding into any other children's literature? I know off camera you had told me you were thinking of doing some educational things to go with this, or do you think you'll just stick in that lane for
I
now?
think, at least with this one, I have, having been a teacher, I have some great ideas for lesson plans that could go with it for teachers and
Yes.
homeschool families. But beyond that, the animals are going to be about wildlife and insects and birds and ocean life. I have plenty of
I love
stuff
it.
to keep myself occupied with. So,
No retirement for
no.
you, huh? I love it. I think this is just the neatest idea, because it's just so from your heart. If you weren't writing from your heart like you are, do you think you would have ever decided to be a
No.
writer if this hadn't just kind of, become a
No.
thing?
Like I said, I didn't even pick up a pencil anymore to write a grocery list. I was
Wow.
doing it all online and had no desire to ever write a children's book or any book.
Wow.
My husband had even suggested it a few times, and I said, no, that's not,
That's not you.
yeah, it's not something I'm interested in. And I honestly believe this book coming out has made a difference in my mental health over losing
Really.
Austin. Yeah.
As part of the healing process and
Yeah.
having something to do with your grief kind of a thing?
One of the things that a parent who's lost a child, their biggest fear, at least my biggest fear, has been that he won't be remembered, that he'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
And this is one way that I can make sure he's not.
I love that. You said you've learned a lot of things in the last year in the production process and the publishing process. When you think about that, for other people out there that are are thinking they'd like to write a children's book like you have done, is there any sort of like, tidbit or two of advice you would want to give other people wanting to break into that industry?
For me, the biggest thing is punctuation things. That's where I'm probably the weakest.
Okay.
So look for ways to support that. And I'm now using Grammarly, which is an app that you download to your phone, and it connects to your text messages, your writing, just about anything. And it's been really helpful because I'm starting to, okay, I always need a comma here, or I need an em dash and not a hyphen, or something like that, so that part of the process is easier.
I love that. You're learning it. You're relearning
Well,
grammar,
and
right?
more
As you go.
solidly than I ever did. I always struggled with it,
Yeah.
so which is another reason I never thought I would write. So,
Sure. I've talked to writers who say that they've always been horrible spellers. Thank God for Grammarly and spell check, because that would be a shame to have all of these creative, wonderful people out there not able to get their stories out there just because, right? And so that's amazing. I love that. Grammarly definitely is good. Are there other tools that you've used that you think have been helpful to you? I didn't know if you had a favorite like writing tool. I know all authors seem to have their own little thing. Like, did you write your text mostly in Word, or what did you use
actually,
for
I
that?
wrote pencil and paper first. And then
Love
I
it.
went in,
I'm a pencil girl myself, so I get it.
and at one point I was drawing like rough illustration ideas and found that
Yeah,
there are times where I just cannot draw. I
sure.
actually,
Mine are stick figures. I get it.
there's a drawing about the sloth's stomach because they're not shaped normally, or what we consider normal. And
Okay.
I had the sloth laying on his back, and all of a sudden I looked at him and he looked like Perry the Platypus from Phineas and Ferb. It's like,
I
that
love
is
it.
not a sloth. So,
Wow, that's why you have a good
oh yes.
illustrator. Oh,
So,
that is awesome. That is awesome. Um, Before I ask you about the show notes that I'm putting together for where to find you, there is another really important question I need to ask you. This podcast was built as Books and Brew originally. When you're writing, are you a coffee girl, a water girl? What would you like have in your cup?
I start out every morning with coffee. And depending on the temperature, I then switch to water or flavored water kinds of things. But if
Yeah,
it stays cold, I stick to coffee.
me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Me too.
It just, because it's handy, I can drink it hot, medium, lukewarm, and ice cold. So I'm okay with the coffee. But when gets really hot,
Same.
I have a tendency to drink one and I'm done for the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like being too hot. I mean, hot flashes are bad enough. We don't need to make it worse,
Right?
right? I'm just kind of like, no, we don't need to, feed that fire. So if you start off with your coffee, you said you like to write with pencil and pen. Is there any other, like, do you need to be in a quiet room? Do you need to leave your house? Are there any other sort of like atmospheric things that help
Actually, for
inspire you when
me,
you're writing?
it goes the opposite direction. I prefer not to be in the quiet too often. Being the oldest of six
Okay.
kids and having four kids, and mom
You're
babysat,
not used to
I
that.
was teacher, the four kids. There's always been noise
Oh my
around me.
gosh.
So if
Okay.
nothing else is on, it's the TV or the radio. I'm
Okay.
just not a fan of quiet, but I've not ever really had quiet. Um,
Sure.
Being the oldest of six, my sister was born when I was 11 months old. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
so it's just been noise all my life.
It would be Yeah, I mean, it would just be like a complete change of environment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you're not used to that, like you basically your entire life, you learn to work within the
Yes.
noise, doing your homework, doing
Mm-hmm.
anything. And so I can totally appreciate that. So you could, I mean, really write from anywhere then. I mean, you could go in a crowded restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
it could be all noisy, and you could probably still
Oh, yeah.
write.
I can do that much
I
easier
love
than
it.
walk into a quiet room and write.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess those quiet writing retreats that we hear about, that might be tough for you.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to like crank up some music on your headphones. I do know a lot of writers that have specific, like they listen to different binaural beats or
Mm-hmm.
frequencies or, classical music, whatever it is. You'd have to have some music
Yes.
going during a retreat. Like the concept of taking the time to write is good, but you would need to have that
Yes.
sound
Yes.
to help you do it. I love that. I love that. So this book is beautiful. I know that right now you have it as a hardback and a paperback. This is the paperback
Yes.
version. I've seen the hardback version, which is just glorious. Can people get it as an ebook if they go to your author
They
website at this
can.
point, or
They
they
can.
can? Okay, so you can get it in all formats, which
Mm-hmm.
I love. And I'm going to put all the links in the show notes for people to be able to go find those books
Okay.
and buy those. And I love that you have, and everyone will love this, that you have the various QR codes going throughout. There's just so many fun things. The illustrations are gorgeous. I know that you've put together some fun little bundles. Can people order any of your cute, like, you have bags and bottles and things. Can people order any of that yet, or is that not quite available to order at the
That
moment?
is not available at the time that we're uh, recording, but I'm hoping by
Okay.
the end of June that it will be
Okay.
available.
Okay, that's great. And then I know that you sell books in person
Mm-hmm.
near the Wapakoneta, Ohio
Yes.
area, which is a little north of Dayton, for people that aren't familiar with the smaller towns in Ohio. We've got the books on your website, you're on Amazon, and pretty much wherever books are kind of
Yes.
sold online, right? Um, Regarding social media and stuff, are you doing just Facebook for now? I know I've seen you have a
I do
Facebook
have a
page.
Facebook page. I'm trying to figure out how to link to an Instagram page as well.
Okay,
Um,
good, good.
and
All in progress,
yes,
right?
yes. I'm not the most technologically adept.
Gotcha.
Starting some of that stuff is a little more difficult for me than it is for others.
Sure,
In part because
sure.
we had one computer for a really long time. So
Been there,
when that
been there.
happens, it puts you behind when you jump forward more than a decade.
Sure.
So, trying to,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and you've got a lot. I've seen some of your photos. I've seen some of your photos of, the people enjoying the book. It sounds like everyone who's read the book loves it. I know I really enjoyed it. I especially liked the page in the back. Uh, is that something I can tell
Oh,
people
yes.
about, or is that supposed to be a surprise? So the coloring sheet that's in
Hmm.
there, love that you added that in. Between that and the QR codes, on top of, I mean, obviously the story itself is just beautiful, but the little things like that you added, I just think are genius to keeping the kids' attention, and it's all about that, right? And so I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with those Facebook and the Instagram pages to keep that going. Like I said, we'll put all those notes in there, and we will get everything going. Is there anything else that you want listeners and your readers to know about you, the books, your story, before we get off here?
Um, this story is just really dear to my heart. Um, just before Austin graduated, he had started a little place that had some animals. He was helping take care of like one or two, but mostly doing maintenance kinds of things. And they
Okay.
had sloths. And he got to go up
Mm,
and feed them and learn things firsthand. And he came home and he was in the living room and he jumps and he goes, "Mom!" And he came running, and with every step, he was like, "Mom, mom, 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 mom." And you could hear his feet running just as fast as he was shouting, "Mom." and he came to the kitchen and he could fact dump. I
Wow.
mean, he spent the next 10 minutes just telling me as much as he could remember, as fast as he could remember it. And I think a lot of that information made it into the book. And I
Good.
tried to share that excitement, that pure joy of learning about
Mm.
animals and knowing about animals. And one of the last things that I really remember seeing him do
Mm-hmm.
was he had brought an insect inside and had it on our lunch table and was watching it crawl around the table trying to figure out what it was. I said, "What are
Oh,
you
okay.
doing?" And he goes, "Well, I can't figure out exactly what it is. This part is like this bug, but this part is like this other bug, and this other part is like a third bug." And it was
Oh my
just
goodness.
so Austin to be
I
trying
love
to figure
that.
out what it was. And I hope I can share and encourage others to be more like that and to really think
Yeah.
about what we're doing to the environment.
Mm.
Because so many things that we're doing now as people as a whole around the world is damaging our environment and the places that animals really need to live. So I'm hoping
That's
to
a good point.
encourage people to think about that and what we're actually doing to the animals and wildlife in those areas. Another area Austin was really frustrated with was bees and not having a lot of
Mm.
I can't think of the word like making sure that we weren't spraying a lot of insecticides and killing bees and other things that are
Yeah.
pollinators because that's going to affect all of us if we lose our pollinators. We're not going to be able to survive as humans.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Bees, birds, other insects, the wind are all needed to pollinate the foods that we grow. And without those foods, we won't be here. And that's,
That sounds like another book
yeah,
about the
I'm
bees.
sure it is. It's coming, it's just not there yet.
Does your brain feel like it wants to explode sometimes with all the ideas?
Yes.
Or do you have a spot that you just write them all down so that you've got, like, I call it my parking garage. I have a parking garage of ideas.
I don't yet, but I'm sure that Bees is one of a book that's coming,
Hmm. Yeah.
and probably hedgehogs and tapers.
What was that
The
last
last
one?
one is a taper.
I've never heard of that.
Yes, they're a very it's some of them are found in Malaysia and some in South America,
Okay.
and they're just really interesting looking. Not very cute, but yet it's one of those that's kind of as an adult you think they're so ugly they're cute.
Got
The
it.
babies are
Got it.
cute, but so yeah, it's all depending on what you know and what you've seen and what kind of interesting facts show up.
I love it. And I have to go look that up now because I need to know what a taper looks like. And when I find it, I will put it in the notes as
Okay.
well. Well, I thank you so much for being on the show. I know it's always a little scary to start talking about your books and things like that. It gets you're on the spot, right? But I appreciate it, and I know our other authors and listeners are going to really enjoy hearing your story and sharing that moving forward. It'll be so fun several years from now to look back and go, oh, I got to talk to her before she became this famous children's writer. Um, I'll have all the notes, and we will make sure that we let everyone know where to find you, where to find your book, and when your next book is coming out, make sure you tell us, and we'll be sure to share it with the world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time today.
That's all for this episode of Authors Allies. We hope you enjoyed our exploration of the literary world. Be sure to stay tuned for our next episode where we'll have more fascinating interviews, book reviews, and marketing tips. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review and share us with a friend. To get your free copy of our ebook, 10 Steps to Your Ultimate Book Marketing Plan, be sure to head over to our show notes. Until next time, happy reading and writing.